Hi, this is Mike Young with Noble Warriors. You're about to hear a message entitled Tools You Should Own If You're in Men's Ministry, presented by Todd Schloman. Todd is a church relations specialist with the Noble Warriors team in Midlothian, Virginia. This workshop was presented as part of the Iron Sharpens Iron Men's Conference, hosted by Noble Warriors at Bonsack Baptist Church in Roanoke, Virginia, on Saturday, February 23rd, 2013. I pray the message will challenge and encourage you as you walk with Christ and lead your family.
Yeah, let's see. So we have some handouts. If everybody's getting the handouts, I probably should take one. Yeah. What? No problem. I had a nice 8-foot table in here earlier. I walked in, I'm like, where's the table? I got all my stuff. This ain't gonna work, guys. Okay. This is gonna be, again, 8-foot table, remember, I'm punting here. So why don't we start over, let me open up with a word of prayer, because you know what, we can learn a lot of stuff, we can talk about a lot of great things that are important, but without God changing the hearts, we're just wasting our time. And without Him working in your lives, this is just not gonna be a good class. So, let's take time, and I just want to say, God, thanks. Yeah, you use me despite me. I sure appreciate that. We just want to say that, you love us, you reach out to us, and you realize that we see ourselves as this nasty piece of wood, and we are. But through your blessing, you make us whole and complete, Lord. And we thank you for that. Thank you when we don't deserve it, because tomorrow we're going to blow it. But you still love us, and you still reach out towards us, and your generosity is overwhelming. And we just thank you that you allow us the privilege to be generous. You allow us to serve. And as we're looking at our men, give us a heart for passion for them, for love. Give us the wisdom on how to use this information, how to use it that's appropriate, that works best for each individual guy here. Each group's different, Lord, and we don't have all those answers, but we just want to share what you've taught us. And we thank you for, again, being a God that is open, loving, and caring, and is just. In Christ's name. Amen. So, again, I work with Noble Warriors. This is what we do for a living. It's sort of fun. I get to go around helping churches look at their men's ministry and figure out what's happening. Now, usually, truthfully, most of the time, very seldom somebody comes in and says, hey, we have this outstanding men's ministry, and we're wanting to know how we want to change that. That usually isn't how they usually come in. It's more of this philosophy of, not sure what's happening. We're just not going anywhere. We're trying to figure out, how do we think about this? We see what we've been, we just don't know where to go from here. So we're going to be talking, now you got to say, what's that have to do? This is green there. Okay, let's relax. My 8-foot table. Okay. This is why we're interested in this. To get society right, you got to get the church right. To get the church right, you got to get families right. To get families right, you got to get marriages right, and to get marriages right, you got to get men right. We think it's the foundation of everything we do. For so long, the church has really put the men, it's not intentionally, but in a way aside, and we'll be talking about that a little bit. This is from the book, No Man Left Behind. Excellent, outstanding book. If you're in men's ministry, if you got to have a book that you have to start reprogramming your mind, you want to learn philosophy, you want to learn, how do I look at this? Requirement. I mean, that is just one that's, we got a couple copies down on the table. We keep handy because we give that one away. We sell it as much as we can. It is a critical book. Now, anytime I tell you to do a book, my always suggestion is never do it alone. Okay? It's amazing to me. I read a chapter, and Matt, if he's in with me, he'll read a chapter, and we sit down. What did we learn from it? That was in the chapter? I missed that part. It's always amazing how God talks to us where we're at. But I need the body. Now that's a critical issue that we've got to realize. That if you're not in the herd, what are you? Bait. That's it. We want to start right from leadership on. This is about a herd mentality. We want people to work together, leadership to work together, because we need each other. It's just a critical thing that we've got to work. We tend to be, from Alaska. You talk about, they have a great T-shirt up there. The male to female ratio is really high. one male or one female to like 80 guys. I mean, it's pretty high, and there's T-shirts that says, "The odds are good, but the goods are odd." We are working with guys. They don't know it, but they need each other. Now, okay, this is sort of how we work. This is our philosophy. Here's Noble Warriors. We come in, relationships. We sit down. I get a lot of benefits going to Panera Bread. We do a lot of Panera Breads. We'll come in. We'll talk to your men's group. We'll do. We love groups when they come into us because it's a controlled environment, big conference table. We've had guys from Roanoke take 5, 6 guys visit us in Midlothian. We'll also come out here just to focus in and say, okay, we got to think about what we're doing. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't have. You need sometimes outside influence to get you to think and be creative. That's how we help you. We want to help the local church. We want the pastor to think Noble Warriors is the greatest thing I've ever seen, because the church is one that's going to help the man, and it's the man that's going to help the family, and then the family's going to help the community. That's how we work. That's our philosophy. We don't ever want anybody to think we're about helping the man out. It's sort of word. Or the family. We want to know we're here to help the church out through the man, through the pastor, through the man. That's always the channel we want to be going. We don't want to isolate. Now, just to know, you come through a conference like this, you go back to you get excited. I got some great ideas, Pastor. And sometimes they won't say this, but they're like, oh no, seen this coming before. So many times, conferences like this means more work for a pastor. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear less work. They're doing all great things. Now, I'm saying this from a pastor view. It's like, which thing do you want to take off my plate? Or are you going to come in and say, hey, can I help you in this area? What's your vision? Can I assist you? Can I be part of being part of your A-team, as Brian is talking about in the breakout? That's a whole different idea than so many guys come into pastors. Hey, I've got a great idea. You need to run this new program. Mindset. We want to come in and say, we want to help you. Now, sometimes it's just, how many of you heard about the nickel prayer? Okay, nickel prayer. Anybody's done it? How's it work?
We just did it downstairs.
Okay. Oh, did he talk?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, he passed the plate.
But has he ever done it in your church? Anybody's done it? Okay. That whole concept of giving your pastor and saying, I'm supporting you. That's how we want you to come, have that feel to your pastor when you leave here. That's why we do that. We said, we want you to go back into your church and start real simple saying, I want to support you by praying for you. I'm praying for you each week. That's sort of the starting point. Gently and easy. Then you'll be successful. Don't come in with great plans. Listen, keep your ears wide open. Okay? First thing we're going to always ask a group coming in, what is your pastor's vision to impact your community? How do men fit into the pastor's vision? Can it look saying no movement of God without the men of God? That's our underlying part of this. We want to communicate that to the pastor. But we want to help you be successful with your pastor, not so your pastor thinks it's going to be more work for him. Okay? So this is always our philosophy when we talk to guys. I want you to share that because I want you to be that your philosophy when you're talking to your pastor. Pastor, how can I help you in your ministry with men? Now, a lot of times they don't even think about it. Now, we're going to go through a couple things real fast. This is a generic slide thing. One of the questions is, what's discipleship? We all say we want to be in discipleship. It's amazing how many times I've asked pastor leadership teams, and not one guy had the same, and not 2 guys had the same answer. They're all defining it differently. That's a starting point. How do we define discipleship? You can't aim for it, you can't shoot it, you can't kill it until you know what you're aiming for, what you're shooting at. We always say that's the issue of most men's program. I have some of these up front. This is just a simple 1 Timothy and Titus 1, elders and deacons, characteristics of an elder and deacon. And we say that's the basic requirement for men. So how are you doing? If you're going to say discipleship is important, this is a simple definition of discipleship. How are you doing teaching these things? How's your men program doing? Is it teaching these things? If not, It's a good question. That's a great discussion point to have it with your men's leadership. How are we actually typing? I got a bunch of these up front. Feel free to grab one later. Now, toolbox. I got a couple strange things in this toolbox. Anybody know what this is? There's some leads that came out of here. I stole them for something else. You don't know what that is? Okay. Okay. Maybe these. Let's see. Come on. Every toolbox has these in them. Don't your toolbox? You snap onto things, you hold onto things. They're really cool. Called Clecos. What's wrong with you guys? That is my toolbox. Let's see. What else do I have here? Oh yeah, everybody's got one of these. Compass. Got one of those? Let me tell you what, okay, backtrack. This is for magnetos. Timing an aircraft engine. If you're gonna time an aircraft engine, you gotta open up, you gotta set your timing. This is for your ailerons on an airplane. Your control surfaces have to be perfectly balanced. And this one has to go down 12 degrees, that one has to go down 12 degrees. And there's a range, so you gotta put this on there, and then you adjust them accordingly. There's these turnbuckles. Ah, this one's a fun one. This used to be mounted on the side of my toolbox. This is called the differential pressure gauge. You plug it into each cylinder, you see the condition of your cylinders on your aircraft engines. Everybody should have one of these. Quality built. I'm trying to think of stainless steel. Anyway, cutting fiber plexiglass. Windshields. You've got to trim them up. How do you cut them? This is a tool. Now, for some of you, this doesn't make. Oh, here's another one. Well, these are flashbacks for me using these. Nibblers. Got to cut something out of aluminum. I got a hole in the center. I can cut a hole right around the circle with these. It takes a little bite-sized chunks. This toolbox, for me, means everything. Now, for you guys, I go, what are you talking about? As an aircraft mechanic for over 20 years, these were the basic tools that I used all the time. If you're an aircraft mechanic, this toolbox makes total sense. If you're not an aircraft mechanic, you're thinking, what in the world are you talking about? So, the question is, what's in your toolbox for your men's ministry? Because here's the first law of toolboxes that you gotta have to know. Let's see. Law 1. Know your men. Now, if you're a carpenter, a friend of mine's a carpenter, he's got a bag, a toolbox. If he's doing drywall, he grabs his drywall bag. If he's doing electrical, he's a general. He's got an electrical box. He's got it's his trailer, it's not air trailer. Now, he might have wrenches, screwdrivers in every bag, but he knows exactly what he needs for that job. He is studying it. He knows throughout the years, doing this for years and years, all the unique things he needs to know. You've got to know, before you even start a men's ministry, who your men are. That's the first law. Now, it seems sort of silly. I'm a man. You go to most seminaries. There's no men's programs. I'm convinced this is a major problem. So, I'm going to make this point. What's the second law? Know your men. And the third law? Know your men. Because if you can't go there, if you don't know that basic information, you're not going to get beyond using the right resources. I'm sorry. It's all know your men. You've got to study them. You've got to take it. All the scripture says, teach, know, learn, transforming your heart, your mind. You've got to get to know who your men are, where their strengths. Guys talk about, how many guys would like younger men to be in their men's program? You don't know your men probably. And I'm going to be critical. But there's a point of truth in that. Because you have to understand where they're coming from. Here's a simple little thing. Now I work with church plant. My son and his best friend are the pastors. It's really interesting. I tried pulling the dad trick. I was a pastor out in Oregon. I came out here almost 3 years ago to help them with a new church. They said they had all these people over 40 years old. What do I do with them? Is there anything worthy that they can do? I'm like, oh. A 30-year-old, or 29 at that point. So we came out here to sort of cover up the things that seminaries don't tell you. Like, first thing, how's your insurance? Insurance? We had 3 big trailers. Found out they had insured the trailers on site on Sundays. And just the trailers. Now the trailers are full of sound equipment, trailers are full of everything else. They had no insurance. And when they parked them in somebody's backyard all week long, and that's when they were going to be vandalized, they had no insurance on them. They only had, you had to get to, I'm here to help them be successful. It's a little awkward. Sometimes I try to pull the dad trump out card. My son is way too healthy, and he goes, nah, it's not going to work out. But you don't know, I know best. But here's what I've learned with younger guys. Let me get this in there. Let's get going, Grandpa. I thought they needed to come to me. I really had this respect, honor. Don't they know I have all this experience? I mean, I've been doing church planting before. I've been in ministry-wise very successful. Been places where we double, triple the size of our churches. Just youth, just variety. Yeah, again, I'm not bad. Young people want, love leads. They want us to come to them. If we expect them to come into our program and we're not leaning towards them strongly, it just doesn't happen. Talked to a guy at a church out in Richmond, and he was struggling with it. I said, well, do you know any young guys in your church? And this guy's he was retired, so he's upper 50s and not 60 years old. Oh yeah, I know a couple of guys. I said, well, where do they hang out? Well, do they do a Bible study? Oh yeah, I think they do a study. I said, well, why don't you ask if you could hang out with them? I said, you can't go in there to teach them, you can't go in, you just got to get to know, love leads. You go to them, they don't go to them. He called up a couple of months later. Todd, it's the greatest thing ever. He's just so ecstatic. And yeah, he just was not that type of guy. He goes, they let me come in and they love it. He says, it drives me crazy. He says, I like to have a study that's just, this week we're going to study this, and this week. He says, these guys are so flaky. He says, some weeks they have a really good study, and then weeks they just sit and talk. He says, they've asked me to lead for 1 week. What do I do? And so I said, well, here, try this. And we talked a little bit, and I said, okay, this is what they've been looking at, talking about. Here's a study that'll help them where they're at. But he learned to reach into them, and eventually, and his goal, and it's happening, was, okay, can I teach for 5 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, maybe not a 24-week study. He's going to start in little groups, but he's learned enough about them. He went to them. Most of our ministries are set up, we want them to come to us. We've got to figure out this communication. Understanding your guys. It is just a critical part of men's ministry. Now here's some just typical facts why I say it's not working the way you are. Now we've known, I think even Mike mentioned earlier today about the statement of if a child comes to Christ, and I've seen several studies done on it, and it varies from the teens to lower 20s, say roughly 20% of the chance of the family coming to Christ. If a mother comes to Christ, it's about 25 to 29% chance of coming to Christ. If a dad, it blows out to 90+% chance. Men are critical. Here's some other facts. Every typical church in America, 60% of the women, 40% men. That's the national average. Why is that? Well, that's where we don't understand men. What is it that men are looking for that we're missing, that's the ratio? Now, for every new church opens, 4 closes as part of my church planting thing. Something's happening. We're missing something. 19.4% decline in church attendance the past decade. Only one county in America has a greater church population than it did 10 years ago. And here's an interesting fact. Muslim religion. I think it's fair to call it a very manly religion. You do really good if you're married. Women, can't figure out why women want to become Muslim. But anyway, 15,000 people per month convert to Islam in the U.S. So it's not the issue that men aren't interested in religion. They're not interested in what we're offering them. Interesting. And I'm not just saying culture. I think you got to keep the gospel clear, precise. I'm not saying washing that down. Please don't hear that. I come from a very conservative theological background. Now I'm very creative, but my theology is extremely conservative. So only 6% of churches are growing in America. Something's happening about our men. We got to understand. Here we read Matthew 28. I'm going to zip through a couple of these because I want to get some good. Wow, this is great stuff. It says we're supposed to make disciples, teaching them. Verse 2, teaching them and training them in Timothy. Yeah. If you're any teachers here, Okay? Do you learn what? My sister made this comment. She's a professor, and she says, I found that my tests is the best indication of how I did teaching. Now, there's always the kids. I'm not talking about the kids that just haven't learned, but especially in college, she always is upper graduate type stuff. If she's failed as a teacher, she finds out in her testing. That's how her mentality is. Well, if something's wrong, not working, we've got to look back and figure out what we're doing wrong. We have to be a really good student of our students. All this material isn't going to help us if we don't understand our guides. Now, I'm telling you all this to get you interested in saying, this only starts today. You got to work on this. This is ongoing. I go to resurgence conferences, church planning conferences, and my son, my dad's going with me, boy. Yeah, and they all come in with their laptops, their Macs, by the way, in shorts, with flip-flops, and then there's the gray hair guy. And I'm like, and who's like everybody else in this group? Yeah, because they always say, you guys are all alike, you're all this. And they're all alike, they're all the same, they're all the same. But I do this because I want to hear, who are they listening to? How are they speaking? Now, some of their best speakers at some of these, Piper. I mean, sort of old. They love the old guys. That's R.C. Sproul was one of them. R.C. Sproul, Piper. It was just fun to hear some of the old guys. They're not ditching the old guys, so hear me. But we have to learn how to communicate, how to talk to them. What are they looking for transformation? Now we know to learn for transformation. Because that's part of teaching. Teaching isn't done unless they're understanding it. Now, you all got this blue card. Okay, I want you to look up here real fast. And 2 lists. Which list best describes Christ?
Right side.
Right side? Everybody say right side? This is from this book. No, this is not mine. You have this on your cheat sheet, that little blue sheet. There's 2 sides to that blue sheet. These 2 lists aren't from that book, okay? That's a different, I got to finish that, sorry. We'll hit the insert part too fast. Ever hear the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? Mm-hmm. Or I do get that back. I think that's that right, Mars and Venus? That's where this is from. The right side is for the women. 80% of the people that take this in churches say that's Christ. What do you think about that? That's when I ask a question, you can respond. That's, what do you think about that statement? We tend to look at Christ in the eyes of a woman. When Christ went to talk to the Peter, Paul, fishermen, I wonder who they saw. Did they say Venus? Or was Christ? Now, I think Christ is both, by the way, just clarify that. I think he knows when he's got to be sensitive and caring and loving. He also knows when power, efficient, skills, results oriented. He's got the Christ thing going. Okay, we struggle with this, but they saw something that I think was more about that power. Why would these fishermen that we all talk about? We're from the wrong side of the track. We're rough guys. We're burly guys. I don't think they wanted to hang out with the soft, sensitive guy. Now, did they need a soft, sensitive guy? Yeah. They just didn't know it yet. Okay? There are times in 33 series, there's times you have to be a king. There's times you have to be a warrior. There's times you have to be a friend. There's times you have to be a lover. You're not one-dimensional. Our culture has told us you're one-dimensional. No, we're not. God's proven that. Now, this great book, we're going to talk a little on leadership. When men hate going to church. Anybody's read it? Okay, what did you think of it?
Excellent. One thing that's interesting too is what do we call ourselves even? The bride of Christ. And that goes back centuries. This issue is fairly old.
Yeah.
That men have been struggling in that
From Genesis.
from identity.
First Adam. He was there and sort of didn't do anything. He didn't step up to the plate. He was passive. He needed to step up. This is just a great book. Now, I'm going to tell you, pastors I've had more guys say, I've read that. It bothers people sometimes. And I found out why. You know, I was teaching, I went into this church, I was hired to come in to help them in transition time, which means all the arrows ended up coming towards me. I didn't realize that. I was pretty idealistic. But I had a group. I had this guy left this church. He was sort of we wanted him to join us in our new direction. He wouldn't. Eventually he left the church. He had a Sunday school class, so I got to take it over. Now this guy never said anything negative about us or anything like that. But the people in the church in this class were all more seniors. They were all seniors. Didn't know that. There's 15 of them. They're all related. Small town issue. We got talking about the struggles of where we're going in the church, and I found out what was happening was when we're saying we're taking a new direction, what they heard is our old direction is wrong. I said, no, we're just changing. Oh, you say we've been doing it wrong. No, that's not, I did not use those words. I did not say that. I said, this is why we have to adjust to the culture. We're not reaching. We want to be more proactive. We want to be known in the community as a church that loves people. How do we do that? We haven't been known. Our neighbors, I said, we went across the street from the church and talked to the people that live there. They didn't know a thing about us. Church has been there for a long, long time, 18 something. So it's like, something's wrong, guys. We've missed the ball. So you're telling us we've failed and we're wrong, and all they heard is all these negatives. It's sort of like somebody getting laid off because the economy. That doesn't make you any feel like you just got fired. You still got fired. You can say, oh, it's the economy. And that's what you tell everybody. But in your heart, it still feels miserable. Well, that's why you come into a church and you say, hey, we got to tell you what you're doing wrong. So that's where I found a lot of people that read this have to step back a little bit and not take it personally. Okay? And I warn you, and I say this, again, I don't want you to blow your pastors over. This is the greatest book ever, and if you don't listen to this, you're wrong. No, we're saying change. Change is good. Now, what happens if you know you should change and you don't? Okay, well, use the wrong issue at that point, but no, it's just changed. We're going to watch a little clip. It's a little, this book, what I love about it, it's divided up, it has a DVD. I'm severely dyslexic. I'm not very good at reading. I love DVDs. Half of it is criticizing what's wrong with the church. The other half is how to correct it. It's great for a leadership team. It's less than an hour per part. You can sit down and discuss it. Now, some of you are going to say, oh, some of this stuff is a little ridiculous. Yeah, I agree. Okay, it's a general concept. Don't throw the baby out with the water on this one. But it's divided into these parts. So you get the guys together, hey, let's have a meeting, let's talk about this. See how we can help in our men's ministry, not the whole church, because you're not responsible for that, how we can help to communicate better. So we're going to watch this little clip, and we're going to see how my multimedia talents are. Yes, it's going to work.
You've all sat on those hard metal chairs, haven't you? Under those fluorescent lights with your Bible open. All right, well, here they are. There's Tom and Tina. They're reading from their Bibles. Let's take a look at the fact. The fact is, men are not as good at reading as women are. Men are diagnosed with reading disorders at 4 times the rate of women. Male literacy in this country is going down every year. So, at the end of one round, the score is Tina 1, Tom nothing. Sunday school skill number 2 is this: speaking and expressing ideas. Right, here we are. They're talking about a Bible passage, and Tina's just waxing eloquent. Tom's sitting there looking at the book of, looks like Ecclesiastes. Let's take a look at the facts. The average woman speaks 20 to 25,000 words in a day, whereas the average man speaks 7 to 10,000 words in a day. Women are better at talking than men are. All right, here we go. Scores 2 to 0 at the end of that round. Now, Sunday school skill number 3. You have to know your Bible, right? The people that know their Bibles do better in church. Now, let's look at, oh, look at that. You've been there before. That's why you're laughing. Here's the fact. Women are 29% more likely to read their Bibles regularly than men. Why? Because women are better readers. Okay, so at the end of round 3, scores Tina 3, Tom nothing. Let's look at skill number 4. Finger dexterity. Now what's that got to do with going to Sunday school?
Some of these things,
Let's take a
okay,
look.
come on.
You've got to look up a lot of passages in a lot of books, right? Now look at these fingers here. They're like sausages. Look at those things. How's he supposed to flip through those skinny little pages with those things? They're like baseball bats. But Tina's got skinny little fingers. She's good at it. Here's the fact. Women outscore men by large margins on tests of finger dexterity. That's why they're able to sew and do beadwork and all the things they're so good at. And men don't do those things. So at the end of 4 rounds, the score is Tina 4, Tom 0. Well, now we're through Sunday school, and let's see how we do between services. Between services skill number 1 is this: socializing. All right, let's see how we do socializing. You guys have been there, right? You've hidden behind your little styrofoam cup while your wife is just talking, right? Here's the fact. Women are much more likely to say that relationships are their top priority in life. Women are just better at socializing. Aren't there some mornings you just want to go to church and worship God and not have to do all that small talk? Anyway, at the end of that round, the score is 5-0. Here's another skill that you need to be good between services: hugging. All right, you're going to like this slide. The fact is, many men are uncomfortable with man-to-man hugging. Now, let me be real clear about this. This is one of the most controversial things I say in my seminars, because men misunderstand what I'm talking about. If you have walked with a band of brothers and you're close to guys and they're like brothers to you, give them a big hug. That's not a problem if you know and trust. What I'm talking about is, in some churches, everybody gets a hug from everybody else. And in our sexually confused culture, that can be misconstrued as something other than it is. Okay? I mean, think about it. Guys read the newspaper, and whenever they see the word church in a headline, the word homosexual is right behind it. Church admits homosexual priests, or blah, 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 or boys abused by priest, or whatever, okay? And so they're coming to church, and they're scared already, and they walk in, and the first thing they do is some big old sweaty guys hugging on them. So we need to be careful about how we do our hugging, you know? I mean, after Brett Favre scores a touchdown, what's the first thing he does? He goes and looks for a big old offensive lineman, jumps up in his arms, and gives him a big hug, right? Why? Because he's doing the most macho thing on earth. He's a NFL quarterback, so his manhood is secure. Plus, they just scored against a team that was trying to keep him out of the end zone. I think that should be our litmus test when we're hugging in the church. Hug your brothers, the guys you fought with, you bled with, you know, but not necessarily every guy that comes in the door. I was talking to an African-American brother in Louisiana, and he told a poignant story. There was a man that they'd been praying for years to come to their church. Faithful wife, husband wouldn't go. Finally, one Sunday he came, but they were a very huggy church. And all the men just lined up and started hugging on him. And when my brother came up to him and gave him a hug, he said it was like hugging a 2x4. You could tell the guy was very uncomfortable. So we just need to be we need to use discernment and caution when it comes to this sort of thing in the church. All right, so we've gotten through Sunday school, we've gotten through between services, now we're going to go into the worship service itself. Worship skill number 1 is singing. We do a lot of singing in the church, don't you? Now, let's take a look at it. Here they are singing, and here's the fact. Men are generally more self-conscious about singing aloud unless they have a terrific voice. Make the music loud, the men will sing. Why? Because you can't be heard over the musicians. That's why contemporary worship with loud instruments, we do better reaching men. Because men don't want to be heard unless they have a voice like Pavarotti or something. So, at the end of that round, the score is 7-0. Now, worship skill number 2 is showing emotion.
So anyway, that's just a great book. I'd really encourage you. Let's see, I think I even have a copy here. Yeah, we got them downstairs. Again, one of the first books I always tell a team that's coming in to talk about it. get this book, read it, discuss it, better yet, get a DVD, and bring your leadership team. And I try to tell people, be broad with your leadership team. Don't be narrow. Bring young guys in there. I asked a guy a couple weeks ago was asking how to get more young guys in your church. And I said, well, how many men, young guys in their 20s in your men's leadership team? None. I said, so? I said, there's places where, they may not be the spiritual mature ones at that point. Put them in appropriate positions. I'm not saying they're going to run everything, but let them participate and understand. And again, love leads. But this is just a great book for your men leadership. Now, here's another part. Again, getting shared. This part, first part, we're going to talk leadership. If you haven't got that idea, this is out of this book, Real Discipleship. One of the best books I've read on real life discipleship. This is a church out in Idaho. Trying to think of the name. It's not coming back. Northern Idaho. How's that sound? Real life disciple. Jim Putman wrote it. Got to visit with him. The church, they have a phenomenal discipleship program. You talk about a church that is just, it's really cool. He finally wrote this book and a textbook that goes along with it. One of the things he talks about, and I thought this was, for me, I like light bulb moments. I need light bulb moments. I tend to look at guys broadly. We're going to do, and their point is they look at discipleship very precisely. So they have this chart in the book, talks about different levels of maturity. So here you have your infants. Now, some people don't like this, and so you don't necessarily broadcast. You don't use this Sunday morning in Bible study, by the way. This is your leadership understanding of this, okay? You have infants, children, young adults, and parents. They're going to respond differently to different things. Infants tend to be very self-focused. Language and behavior characterized by ignorance. Again, how they're going to talk with the word of I, because it's all about them. Okay? It doesn't matter if a guy is 60 years old or 25 years old, he could still be an infant. If you understand that, how you're teaching your outreach programs, your training, understand, would you want to bring an infant into a heavy discipleship program? Wouldn't make sense. But we tend to, I find churches don't think about things. You need to think about, where are you guys at? Where are they spiritually at? So you can define, so sometimes you gotta have courses for infants that infants will feel comfortable with. But you also have to teach your parent, the older Christians, you need to be in the courses that we're designing for infants to build relationships. See, this is a circle process. You should be going around and, infants, children, again, younger Christians in their maturity, whatever the age, it's not, but you've got to think about, where are they in the mature life? And they'll tell you by what they want, by how they talk about things. Are they wanting to serve, or are they wanting to be served? Really good. When they complain about everything, it's about them. Good indication. You've got more of an infant-child problem. Hey, I want to serve somehow. Well, you've got a young adult. You've got possibly an adult there. Again, how you plug them in, how you talk to them. An adult, I'm going to say, who are you investing in? Who are you discipling? Are you going to these other programs to connect with guys? Or are you just doing these high-end Bible studies? Guys, we got to keep pushing. You got to know your guys. Important part. Again, this book. And all these books are in that handout. Okay? I got information on them, the authors, a little description of them, why I like them, why they're on the list. Now, here's an important process. Another revolution. And this was in Sticky Church. I forgot to put that. Best small group book I've ever read. And I've done a lot of small group stuff. And still, after reading this last year, 2 years ago, I found out how wrong I was on some stuff still. It's like, when will I learn everything? The concept here is there are activities that everybody wants to be involved with. What's an activity that you said, it didn't matter if they're Christians or not, they want to come do this at our church? What are some of those activities?
Church picnic.
Picnic? Yeah.
Bowl.
What's that?
Bowling.
Bowling? What else?
Movie night.
Movie night? We had a shotgun shoot. We had like 9, 10 throwers. It was awesome. Everybody wanted to go, and we made a big thing about it. You didn't have to know how to shoot. And we teach you. We got across the board type of people like that. Going to baseball games, anything that stuff. Now, as you go down, it narrows as the commitment level goes up. These are social groups. Here, a typical small group ministry is somewhere in the middle. All Christians, medium Bible study. It tends to be your typical small groups. That's where I'd say our small groups tend to be. Now, I used to have this expectation, I'm going to reach my neighbors through my small groups. Reality was I never did. Okay, they didn't want to come. Why? They didn't have a medium Bible study mentality. They were in fellowship, social at best. But I had this expectation, my small group was going to reach the community. And this book asked the question, so how many people, for those people that had that mindset, how many people have you reached? One? That's not too good an eye, right? The reality was I was trying to do too many things in my small groups. And here's another thing I said, guys want to do discipleship programs. Where are they? That's down here. A very small amount of guys. Well, first, and I say this all the time, hey, we got 10 guys to do this discipleship program, maybe 20 guys. The next class was 3 guys. Well, you just don't have that many resources at this point. The trick is now, here's the challenge. You don't want to stay up here. You want to keep pushing them down. You got to keep pushing, and it really is that type of action. You have to do activities that catches them, and then you pull them down to the next level. And you have to have appropriate. That's why you have to know your guys. What tickles their fancy? What itch do they have? And you got to scratch the itch. This is a lot of talk about small groups. I am a big fan of small groups. If you want to learn more about them, this is an outstanding book, very practical. And it's funny, the book is this long, but the back third, at least, is resources. So the book is really actually very small. But this is what I do with all my small group leaders. We go through this and talk about it. We do a chapter a week, and we talk about it. How does that affect our small group development? But you got to know where you guys are and then have appropriate expectations. Some guys had large groups come to ISI, which is amazing. Not going to be everybody. You're going to be up here a little bit more because it's a one-day event. You can put all your eggs in that one carton. And you can sell it. But if they don't have sometimes a biblical commitment, the odds are they're not going to be up there. It's got to, you have to understand socially where they're at, where their needs are. And just again, don't have these expectations like I did. I was going to meet why wouldn't my neighbors come into this relationship? Again, love leans. I had to go up to where they are. It's a crazy story. I was really struggling with my neighbors because here I'm preaching to everybody, teaching. I was the community outreach guy, and I couldn't get really connected to my neighbors. And so it wasn't bothering me until God started convicting me. I was fine up to that point. And then I'm like, God, how am I going to reach them? So I'm looking for opportunities. One night, there's a red flare in my backyard going, what is that going on? Go out the front, and there's 3 fire trucks surrounding my one neighbor's house. He has a shed in the back, big shed, with lots of guns and ammo and gunpowder in it. And somebody arsoned it, burnt it down. Because of that, all my other neighbors had to be out of their houses. Guess whose sidewalk they were all sitting on? Right up front of my house. They're all lined up. So I just went out there and sat down and started talking with them. We never really had much. Got the guy. It was sort of neat. The guy's house that burnt down, or not his shed burnt down. I went over to him and said, "Hey, can we help you?" As an elderly man in the 80s, can we help you? Is there anything can we tear down your shed for you, so you can put up another one? No, I've got it. Oh no, you really? No, I got it. 2 weeks later, hey Todd, you want to come over and tear down my shed for me? So finally, had all these connections. It cost him a shed for me to make these connections with my neighbors. But I leaned towards them. And I really learned that love leans. So much in our churches, we talk about the castle effect. We talk about our wall effect. We got to learn how to lean into appropriately. Know your men. Now, one of the great series we've seen right now is the 33 series. How many of you guys seen 33? Used it? Okay. You like it?
I just started looking at it.
Okay. Have you used it or you just
Haven't
started?
used it, just
Okay.
started looking.
These are the workbooks. By far, of all the material we've used, this is the best one. Now, it started out with men's fraternity, and they had these programs that are 24 weeks long. It's like, bring a a new believer or a friend, hey, I got this great men's program, it's only 24 weeks. Will you commit to it the rest of your life? Because that's what you're asking. Didn't work. Good material. Now, truthfully, it was this white guy in Southern America standing up front and in a podium in this big church. It did not speak to my church. I have a young church. They're in their 20s and 30s. We have a mixed culture in our church, just all over the range. They just wouldn't even touch it. I said, yeah. Now, it was awesome stuff. I did it with another church. It was unbelievable, okay? But the guy spoke for 50 minutes. Now, you got to know him. It's good stuff. And I'm going to rib on it a little bit because I don't like it. But it really is good stuff. In some cultures and some churches, that is the way to go, okay? You've got to know your church. This new stuff is 6 weeks long. There's six-week sessions. Now, they've only got 2 3/4. The next third one is out in April. The first one is called Man and His Design. It talks about the definition of manhood. 6 weeks, half an hour long, high impact, relevant. It really said. What I like about it is 3 guys talking, okay? And the herd is talking. We're always focusing. The herd has to come together. The herd has to talk. 3 guys. They're not sitting in a church. They're sitting, let's say, in a brick wall cafe type of place, coffee shop. And they're talking about how God has impacted their lives. And then the one guy goes, so what are you talking about today? And then he starts off. A lot of multimedia. That one clip we saw at the beginning, that was one of these. Some of them are hilarious. Some of them are really serious. Some are really artsy. I love that you never know. Every week it's going to be, if not typical studies, this guy's going to have this. I remember my old pastor. He'll speak for about 18 minutes, and then he's going to have a story. And every week you do, here's the story coming. Yeah. He always, consistently the same. This, sometimes I'll have 3 multimedias, bang, bang, bang. Another time he'll speak for 15, 20 minutes before he has multimedia. And you never know who's going to speak. It's just good. We're going to watch a clip because it's really important. I want you to get the feel of it. But know that it's going to be different each week. Any questions? Workbook. Yeah.
You set your neighbor's shed on fire?
I did. I did not. But I got to admit, I felt a little guilty. That's what it took for God to help me out. Right off the bat, you hear the music. Something's happening. Now, you need to make more rhythm.
Guys, there was just something about the last session.
That's how it starts every
the
single week.
definition of manhood. When I began to think about that, I just thought to myself, if I had that earlier in my life, just where would I be?
That's
To
right.
think about that, to reject passivity, to accept responsibility, to lead courageously, and then to invest eternally. I mean, that reshapes everything we're about.
Yeah, for me too. When I first heard that several years ago, it was like somebody kicked me in the rear and said, get up, get in the game, and do something. Don't just stand there like Adam in the garden.
Yeah, it puts that bullseye specifically on man's primal issue, and that's passivity.
Yeah.
And so, boy, to call that out and then to call us up into something else is exciting, which is exactly what we do in this session and the next couple of sessions, where we paint a picture of kind of the multi-dimensionality of masculinity.
Right. That manhood is not just one-dimensional. You can't act at home like you act at work. I mean, there are different sides, different faces, and we have to learn to embrace all of those and use them at the right time.
Yeah, there are 4 faces, right? Yeah. So we don't have to look at your face anymore. There are 4 faces of manhood. We're going to cover a couple of those.
There are. This session we deal with the king and the warrior. Next session, the lover and the friend. So today we're going to look in this session really at the righteous energy of the king, a lot about integrity and how to build that, what that looks like, and then the action-oriented, courageous energy of the warrior. So I'm excited to paint that vision.
I think, JB, you're up to date, so we can't wait to hear what you have to say.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
We've always needed God, but today we need Him especially. We're facing a new kind of enemy. We're involved in a new kind of warfare, and we need the help of the Spirit of God.
Neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, can separate us from God's love.
In these next two sessions, we're going to give you a perspective of masculinity that complements and expands our manhood definition. Our masculinity is designed by God to be multidimensional. Narrow or incomplete views of manhood will limit you. It'll hold you back from all that God created you to be, to do, and to experience. Unfortunately, our society has often depicted masculinity as one-dimensional. Men are viewed as only tough and unemotional, or as the overbearing CEO, or as the romantic ladies' man. These are often caricatures of masculinity, and they often dominate our culture's portrayal of men. The well-rounded man, or the man who can wield his masculinity timely and appropriately, is so rare these days that we've actually mystified holistic manhood. We've assumed that it's unreachable. We use a term like Renaissance man, which implies that the multifaceted man is a thing of the past. For example, we don't seem to believe that the man who can successfully lead a company can do it with integrity and honesty, while at the same time being passionately connected to his wife and kids and experiencing genuine friendship with other men. Many of us believe that such well-roundedness is unattainable, and we often pit those options as either or rather than both and. The Bible paints a different picture. It shows us men like David, not perfect, but a man who can write a psalm, play a harp, kill a giant, king a nation, and relationally connect with other men. I think this is what the world is looking for. Our cities, our workplaces, and our families need men who can step into all that God's created them to be. I think this is what we as men are looking for too. Instead of a narrow, one-dimensional caricature, we need a biblically based, broad masculinity that is multidimensional. The kind of masculinity that can move into multiple settings and express itself appropriately and powerfully when needed. We're going to talk about 4 expressions of manhood, 4 facets that need to operate in harmony, each complementing the other, each synchronized with the other, each balancing the other.
It gives you an idea.
We'll call these 4 expressions the 4 faith.
And now, just to give you The key, this is only 30 minutes long. The idea is you can do it in a Sunday school program. 30 minutes of one of these guys talking, and then 30 minutes of handbook time. The package is $75 for 6 weeks. These are $15 a piece. These are a critical part of it. It just doesn't work without the reaction. Again, it's the issue of the herd. Here's the first week. The first question is, why did you join the manhood journey? What expectations do you have what expectations do you have personally? Now, we did this first time. We had about 100 people in our church. We had 24 guys show up for the first 6:30 in the morning on Tuesday. Average age was probably late 20s. We maintained 20 of them the whole 6 weeks. Actually, it was the older guys the upper 30s that bailed out. But what surprised me is when I asked this question, again, we had never been, no more than 8 guys in a small group, 9's really pushing it. Our group, we had 8, and I asked this question, and they went around. Most answer to all this was I was lonely. One guy said, I'm a brand new father and I'm scared stiff. I don't know what I'm doing. Another guy, one of our worship guys, very popular, leads a small group. I'm lonely. I don't, most people think I'm just very active, but I'm a lonely guy and I'm trying to figure out. And when we started asking, well, what did you think of the first one talks about the journey, the issues of men, how we got there. And it goes through history and says, this is how we got to this bad definition of manhood. They all said, never even thought of that. That makes so much sense. I didn't realize I was a product of what has happened before. Because you can't really change until you figure out where you did. It's a powerful study. It shocked me. When the first time I did it, everybody was hyping it up. And I'm like, yeah, right, you are. No, they were right. If it really was that good, it scratches an itch. Now, it's not like going through Ephesians. I've got some other stuff that is systematically going through Ephesians 6, 20 Evans. Outstanding study on Ephesians 6. But this one deals with the issues of manhood reality. That's the first one. How do we get there? Create and cultivate. We're designed to create and cultivate. We saw that right from Genesis. Manhood definition. How do you define a man? The king, the warrior, the lover, the friend. And then it talks about the seasons of life. There's certain seasons, how you respond to it is appropriate. David, he did really good the first half. No, he didn't do the greatest on the second half of his life. Started having issues. So it looks through the Bible saying this is reality. And the Bible's great for that. It doesn't hide it. It's right there. It says, you don't have to go this way though. So key part of this. Now another fun part of this is some of you are readers. Don't relate with you at all. Okay, not a reader. They have all the answers in the back, and I go in first and I fill them in before I do this lesson, so I don't have to worry about filling it in. Because if you notice, those little yellow words come up, and you're supposed to fill in the blanks. If I do that, I'll lose track with the guy speaking. So before the lesson, I always fill it all in. But some of you are readers. You love filling in blanks, and at the end, they always have stories. Some of you even go beyond that. Well, they have resources, and they tell you. Tim Keller has a book, The Prodigal God. It gives you resources. If you want to read more about this issue, get it. So this is a huge resource. They recognize we're all different. Some are readers, some aren't readers. Some love to do resources. This covers everything. Sometimes just keep it in your bathroom, light stories, but real stories. They don't miss any punches. Any questions about 33? Again, the second book's out. This is the second book, and it deals with looking back, the dad wound, the mom wound, healing all alone, the heart. Really was powerful. Opening scene is this guy walking through his house, David Platt, saying, and he's talking about the importance of how he had to look back. He says, and it was hard, and he didn't like it. And he's going through this old house, the house he grew up in. He said, but until I looked back, I couldn't figure out where I was heading. I had to understand some of these things. That book is probably one of the harder books. I've had guys, particularly older guys, I don't want to have to deal with that stuff. I've never dealt with it. I got this, you have an issue, God wants you to change, and you don't want to deal with it? Nope. I didn't know what to tell him. He stopped coming. Now I had another friend, 63 years old, transformed his life. I could not believe it. It was the craziest thing, but it's his story. But just sexually abused as a kid, all these issues, and is the first time he actually got to talk about it, and he realized that actually God loved him. Grew up in the church. Didn't know that. He knew the right words, but never felt it. So, great book. Any questions? How to use it? Small groups key? Okay. Now here's a typical men's program. Your starting point, you have so many guys coming to your your men's program. You have an activity, the golf tournament, say. You get 30 guys, 40 guys, 50 guys coming in. Again, this is no man left behind, a critical concept, this concept to understand. It's great. Yeah, next time. You come to ISI. This could be today. You bring all these guys. You go back home. You see them at church. That's the end of it. Another couple months from now, you have another. Well, it'll be springtime, so that's when the golf tournament comes out. We're going to have, and everybody shows up. But nothing happens afterwards. This is the pattern that most men's ministry programs have. At the end of it, who's really getting discipled? You go to have these great activities, and you can put on great activities. You can do beast feeds, you could do golf tournaments, shotgun. I mean, this one church, a very conservative church, and they had a paintball range. And I like, these are high, it was sort of funny, I never thought this church would do it, but they did it, and they had a blast every year, and they killed each other all for the whole day. The welts the next day were, it was just like, I always wanted them to invite me, and they never did. Now, the difference, starting point, you come up, and there are those times, and it doesn't matter what it is. You can put all your eggs in the basket, and you can get guys there. You can use all your resources, all the things to do. You've done all these good things in church. You get those guys here. Finally, you say, for me, it was the ISI, or not the ISI, the 33. We want everybody at this thing. Usually, the ISI, good one. We had Faith Fellowship. Bonsack, you had 52 guys, something like that. You guys put a lot of investment in coming today. All all your payments due today. You've made it all due. They come. Well, the key is, before you even start, at the starting point is you need to know what you're doing next. What's your part? Because you're gonna have guys that have put that stake in the ground and said, what's next? What do we do? Well, if you don't have the next program already, if you're not even talking to them, you should be already, today, you know what, we've got something planned. We've got this great new series called 33. We're going to start that. It's going to be awesome. You'll capture a group of them. You're not going to capture them all. If you capture, now this is a really optimistic chart. Okay, my reality is a third, if you can capture a third of the guys to do one, you're doing great. Okay, out of our 24 guys, we captured about 8 of them to do something else after our 33. But that, to maintain the momentum, you have to do something. Again, I would not recommend a real long program. You can do a long program, but you cut it up into 6-week sections, 8-week sections you can do. You can take there's some 24-week programs on here on the back page. Just don't advertise it as a 24-hour program. We're going to do it for 8 weeks. Can you handle 8 weeks? Can you handle 6 weeks? Okay? Guys can handle that. And then you take off a couple weeks, by the way. You don't trick them and say, we got you next week. No, you got to take off maybe a month. Then, now, the goal is always, eventually, to have small groups of guys that are accountability. Groups that are counting on each other each week. That's where you're heading towards. You want to, and hopefully they're informal. I meet with a guy once a week. In Oregon, we had 3 guys that we met together once a week informally. We held each other accountable. That's where the strong goal is, the informal stuff that happens from these. But one thing that, to sustain change, what I did with one group of guys is, during our study, the guys were saying, okay, what do we do now? Where do we go? And I wanted them to answer the question. And because one of the stories in 33 was about this group of men that had been meeting together for 20 plus years. And my little group of guys, 8 guys, said, that's so cool. Could we start somewhere like that? And I'm like, oh, thank God. Thank God that actually somebody asked the question. I said, yeah, we could. What would you like to do? I don't know. I said, well, do you guys do really good at Bibles? You know, we've been talking for 6 weeks at that point, and I said, we seem like we all struggle with our daily devotions. Oh, yeah, we're all really lousy at it. Why don't we read 1 chapter a week? get together and talk about that chapter. Not one chapter one time, one chapter 5 times. There's research out that says if you read something 4 times and have devotions about it, think about it, transform about it, it will transform your life. So, I mean, huge government, it was sort of neat how it was done, but Back to the Bible was part of that. And they said, they call it the power of 4. Not 3, it's got to be at least 4 times, where you take one passage, and you can read 4 different passages, okay? But one of the problems why I get with guys with one passage is most guys don't know how to study God's Word. And if they just read it 1 time, 4 times, or 5 times, hopefully at least 3 times, realistically, then they hear you talking about it, everybody in the group, eventually they start learning how to hear and how to ask the right questions. And so in this process, they're learning how to study God's Word. So we'll do this for the book of John. And then we'll go back to do another study. But I'm always going back to how to teach them independent study on themselves, independent reading God's Word, because that's transformation is going to happen. But it's in the small group effect. But this is the program that you should have all the time going through your men's ministry. Do something big. Now, the idea is eventually, even though you might have had 50 guys show up, if you have 10 or 15 guys long term, you're winning. That's awesome. If you have 8 guys, that's awesome. Because the trick is, the next time, let's get this, each time if you pick up, say 5 guys, 3 times a year you do this concept, at the end it's 15 guys. The next year, that's 15 guys more. You're hitting a huge amount. The old traditional way where it's up and down, we're just not hitting any guys. We're not even picking up 1 or 2. We need something that you cultivate, sustain it, have a big thing. And it doesn't matter what it is. Until you're focused, again, you need to know who you're focusing. Who do you reach for? Now, if you have a golf tournament, they're great. But if you do it on, now I'm going to criticize, okay? I'm going to be critiquing that concept. Don't take this personally. If it works for you, I'm not saying change it, okay? But I'm just saying how you have to look at things. Saturday morning golf tournament. If you're expecting young guys to do it, you're going to struggle. Now, if they really are crazy golfers, they may show up. But they've been working most younger guys have putting in a ridiculous amount of hours. They have a family, they have a wife, and you think that wife's going to let you go off Saturday morning with them? The odds are really slim. Now, if you don't, you're going to be reaching a group of guys. If you understand that, that's great. But don't complain that the young guys won't come. Because they've got their wife and their kids to deal with on Saturday morning. They've been gone all week. And she's saying, hey, I worked too, or you haven't been here all week. You've been working 12-hour days. You've got them today. I'm chilling out. Realistically, a golf tournament may not catch younger guys. Now, my son loved playing golf. You probably would have caught him. There's always the exception. I don't know saying what was going to work in your group. You have to define that and figure it out. But look at it that way. What do they need? Where are they going? Now, if you're looking for, like, a friend of mine, when he plays, he loves it. But it's mostly retired guys that are showing up. That's great. They need Jesus too. I got no problem with that. But don't complain that the younger guys are. You got to figure out what will work for the younger guys. But understand that it's this process of knowing what your next step is. Your next 3 steps are. Every time. You never do a big program unless you should be talking today. Hey, you know what? Next week, we're going to get together in 2 weeks and talk about what we learned here at a breakfast. And we're going to be starting this great 6-week course. Or an 8-week course, or 10-week course.
Well, I trust this message has provided some practical encouragement for you on your journey with Christ. Please visit noblewarriors.org to learn more about how Noble Warriors works to help churches reach and build men. God bless you, friend.